I'll be providing an overview of Amazon KDP and Lulu Express so that you can decide which one is right for you. Before we get started, there's two things you need to know. One, I've used both KDP and Lulu Express. And two, I have a Shopify website that integrates with the Lulu Express app, which is comparable to using KDP for print-on-demand products like journals, books, and planners. All right, so we're going to start off by covering the similarities between KDP and Lulu Express. And the first thing that might not be a surprise to you is the fact that they're both print on demand. So when an order comes in, Amazon KDP will print off your journal or planner or book and ship it to the customer. And the same is true when you use the Lulu Express app on your website. I have a Shopify website. So when an order comes in, that order is sent to Lulu and they process it. They print off the journal and then send it directly to the customer. Next up, we have the cost to print. They are comparable, but you're going to walk away with a higher rate of return when you are using Lulu Express, assuming that you're able to generate sales. So if you're able to generate more sales through Amazon KDP, then over the long run, it might be more worth it for you to pursue the Amazon KDP as your printing and distribution source. But if you're just comparing them side by side and not taking into consideration where you're likely to generate sales, you just comparing them, Lulu Express, you're going to walk away with a higher rate of return. Next up is binding. The options for binding are very similar and very comparable. You have a few more binding options with Lulu. The most notable difference being that you have the option to print your book or journal with a spiral as the binding, and you're not just limited to paperback or hardback as you are with Amazon KDP. When it comes to covers, they both provide glossy and matte options. And we'll take a look at I'll show you a journal that I created through KDP and a journal that I created through Lulu Express. I'll show them both to you so you can see how they come out in terms of the print quality, the vibrancy, and the colors. You can kind of compare them. But when it comes to choosing whether they're going to have a gloss cover or a matte, it's the same. There's no difference there. And then the page type, sizes, qualities, all of that is very comparable, very similar, no notable differences. And the creation process for both are very easy, not exactly the same, but both simple and easy to set up. Let's take a closer look at Amazon KDP. We'll take a look at the pros and cons. So we already covered the fact that it's pretty easy to set up on Amazon through KDP, the creation process, but it's also easy to get a listing up on Amazon for your journal or notebook or planner. So the whole process in total is real easy. Print on demand. They also will give you the option of creating an ISBN number on the spot, which can be important if you're selling your journal or your book outside of Amazon. If you're selling it in person and you need a barcode, they can create that for you and print it right on the book. There's fast and free shipping for Prime customers with Amazon Prime. So that can make that really convenient for them. And then I put it on the pro side, but it's really a pro and a con. Listing with Amazon, there's some challenges that go along with that in terms of pricing and then also driving traffic to it. So it's a pro that you're on the Amazon website and people can find you there, but it's also a disadvantage because there's other people that are also selling journals and books and you're in direct competition with them. So someone can go to your listing, see your item, but then they also can see other competitive options right there. So it works maybe for you and against you. And when you're first getting started, you have to drive traffic to your listing to get those sales going, to get those reviews so that you can generate more sales. So that's something that can be a positive, but then there's the negative side to it in terms of getting things going at first. Also, the price that you sell your book or journal for on Amazon, you can't sell it for more than that outside of Amazon. So if you were to sell your journals both through Amazon KDP and then through another source, you would have to ensure that the pricing was consistent across all different platforms where you're selling it. And you can't sell it, your journal, for less than what it's listed on Amazon KDP. So if you were to have a sale on your journals on a separate website, you would have to ensure that the pricing for your Amazon listing was the same or better. All right, let's take a look at some of the cons. The first one is that I've ordered just myself before selling my journals. I ordered quite a few. It's at least one of each journal that I created just so I could see it in person and make sure that it looked good before I was selling it out to the public. And when I received those journals, about 30% of the time, they were damaged. And I'm going to show you an example of what damage looks like. But basically, when they're shipping the journals to you, they're either in a bubble mailer or they're in an oversized box with just some loose bubble, kind of the large bubble pieces that they'll put into boxes to keep things from being tossed about, to kind of help hold the items within the box steady. It doesn't really work for journals when they're kind of thin like that, or for books. They end up getting tossed about anyway inside the box. So by the time you get it, there can be some damage that way. And then there can also be some printing errors or issues on the cover itself. So I'll show you an example of that. But about 30% of the time, there is an issue with the journal. So 3 out of 10 needed to be returned. So that's something to think about. If people are ordering your journals off of Amazon KDP and they're receiving them damaged, that can impact your reviews and customer retention. So again, packaging is flimsy and unsupportive. Also, you cannot integrate KDP into your website. So with the Lulu Express, you can automate the process where people go to your website, see a journal they like, choose it, and then it gets printed and shipped through Lulu. So you can make that automated process happen very easily on your own website. But you can't do that with Amazon KDP. They don't have that option. They really want you to send your traffic for your journal to their website. That's really what they want to happen. So that's a major con if you're trying to direct traffic to your own website. You don't want to direct people to your website for these products and then direct them to Amazon for those products necessarily. That's not necessarily something you would want to do. And then you're limited by the Amazon listing price, which is something we talked about. All right, let's take a look at Lulu. So some of the pros for Lulu, it's really easy to set up with your shop. If you use Shopify, if you have a Shopify website, it's easy to set up the Lulu Express app. So that's really great. You can sell your journal or your book for any price. It really doesn't matter. The cover is slightly more vibrant and color accurate when printed through Lulu, and I'll do my best to show you as clearly as possible the two different covers, so you can determine for yourself how you feel about them, so you can compare them. And then when you're shipping with Lulu, there's zero damage. They take really good care to package the journals really well. They're packaged in a sturdy cardboard-like packaging, and I have never received a journal from them that was damaged or had any complaints from anybody else that they received damaged journals. And the the packaging that they use. It's just more appealing when you receive it. It's more professional. And then for the cons, they don't provide an ISBN number, which is not the end of the world. You can get that elsewhere, but that's just something to know. You will either have to incorporate the cost of shipping into your product, or the customer will have to pay for shipping when they're going through the checkout process. But there's no Prime membership advantage here. So the cost of shipping is definitely something that you're going to have to consider and address. And then also there are longer shipping times and delays with Amazon. They have their own shipping teams and their own shipping services. They're able to deliver items fairly quickly. And with Lulu Express, when a customer is going through the checkout process, they'll be able to choose how quickly they want the package to be delivered, whether they want to pay a premium or if they want to pay for standard shipping. And so that means relying on USPS or FedEx. Those will be some of the options that they'll have to choose. They'll be in a position where they can accept the longer shipping times. So if they're a last minute shopper for the holidays, for example, that could be a bigger issue. So here are the journal covers that I was talking about. This one over here is Lulu Express. And then over on the right-hand side, you see the Amazon KDP journal. Hopefully maybe you can pause the recording and like look real close if you want to try to find some differences. I think the key might be, and we'll take a look at a few more pictures, but you can kind of see when you're looking at certain spots that it's more saturated on the Lulu journal. And it's hard to tell because of the reflection and the lighting is not ideal, but there's places in the painting that are just more muted. And then over here, they carry well. They blend a little bit better. It's more color accurate, whereas this is kind of murky and almost colorless. This looks like a little brown, and then it blends into a purple, and then a little bit of a darker color up here. And this one just looks seamless. It's that reddish pink, and then it goes a little bit more smoothly into the brown and the purple, and then a little darker color up there. So I'm not sure that everybody would pick up on that or see that, or that they would notice, or it would matter to them. For myself, I painted it myself, so I know what it's supposed to look like. And so those things do stand out to me a little bit more. So I don't know how you feel about it and what's important to you, but I'll take another look at another picture. Here's a second look at the cover, a little better lighting. Lulu Express is here on the left and Amazon's on the right. And you can kind of see this is maybe a better shot where you can kind of see it's just a little bit more vibrant in color than it is here. And I know the lights from the photo, the light that's off to the side isn't quite even across the two journals, but when you're looking at them side by side in perfect lighting, there is a slight difference in terms of vibrancy. It's hard to kind of capture that here. It's hard to really see it. So they're both stunning covers in terms of color and vibrancy. It's just Lulu takes the cake a little bit more. If they're just a little bit more accurate, it just pops just a little bit more. So here's an example of some of the damage that you might see on a journal that goes through Amazon's shipping process. I returned most of the journals that had damage on them. That's one thing about Amazon that's just fantastic, is the return process is pretty easy and it's really no questions asked. So I appreciate that, but this is pretty common to see damage like this. You've got a blue streak dye. It's like a color ink that is not supposed to be there at all. And you see it in two places. And then there's also just maybe it being thrown around during packaging, or it just had a rough shipment and delivery process, but you'll just see some bends and some creases. This is very typical. And then also there's some scuffing down here where the edges of the journal will be damaged. This is very common. You'll see this a lot when you're looking at damage to journals, when you're trying to identify what the main issue is. It's the binding taking a hit, and you'll see it on the corners of the journal, usually around the binding. I haven't seen too much damage on the flap of the cover. It's usually along the binding. Some of the other issues that I've seen is just streaks like these blue ones carrying across the front of the journal, or sometimes it will look like there's another layer of printing, like I've seen just faint words printed across the journal. Things like that. It just looks like something occurred during the printing process. That does happen, but it's more common that you're just going to see wrinkles and scuff marks and just some damage around the binding area. That's more common. Overall, I'm happier with the end results of Lulu, but you might consider shipping through Amazon, especially if you have customers that will be purchasing from you internationally. Before you make a final decision, you might consider a few questions like, do you want to sell your journals, books, planners exclusively through Amazon? Or would you prefer to have a website that could sell potentially more than those things? What is your overall goal and what are your overall needs? You'll need to identify what it is that you intend to sell and if it makes sense to drive traffic to your Amazon listing or to your own website. If you have questions, thoughts, tips, suggestions on working with KDP or Lulu, please share them in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you around.